Whatever. I guess I should be thankful. Well, hopefully next movie round's better. See you then. Hey guys, Zibboyeye or just Zib is fine. And I'm restructuring these reviews. No more story segments. I'd like to expand on what led to this decision at a later time, but long story short, I wasn't happy with how my story segments were turning out, and it's hard to write, act out, and edit these scenes when you lack confidence in their results. This made production slower due to my hesitance and less fun, and I wanted to have fun. That being said, we're still looking at the next installment to the Saw series in the same comforting confines of my closet today, but before we dive into this film, let's go over the situation in which this film came out of. Once again, prior to Saw 3's inception, no one wanted anything to do with it. Leigh Whannell, James Wan, even new to the series, Darren Lynn Bousman refused to write for it. Lionsgate was going to have their sequel with or without them, but unexpectedly, the three men would change their tone on the matter later on. Soon after the release of Saw 2, producer of the series Greg Hoffman passed away. This deeply affected Whannell and Wan. Hoffman was the man who discovered their 8-minute short film, dubbed now as Saw.5, and financed it to become the two's first big film debut. Hoffman played a similarly important role to Bousman, whom was also impacted by his death. When studios refused to pick up his script for The Desperate, Hoffman was there to give it the go-ahead at Lionsgate, although under its conversion to Saw 2. These writer-directors felt like they owed it to this man to give the series he produced one last hurrah, so the three returned to Lionsgate to transpose their emotions into film and make Saw 3 out of respect for their lost friend. Now that we know the backstory, let's see what came of it. It's time to look at Saw 3. So the movie starts right where we left off. Well, alright. This makes it really easy to get into the movie right at the get-go. Certainly a lot better than an opening kill. Although, I have to ask, why is the white balance correct in this scene? I mean, we never see the bathroom in its proper colors, so it's new, I guess, but every other time we've looked at Jigsaw's games, they've had an off color, and its absence here makes the scene feel really inconsistent. So he breaks his foot to get out of his shackle and... I'm gonna be honest, it's not that pretty. Kind of a tough way to start the movie. Afterwards, we cut to Carrie investigating the aftermath to another game. The gory investigation as well as flashback remind me of the exploitation feel I expected going into this series. At least the first movie gave you around 20 minutes to get comfy with the main characters and setup before bloodying it up. And considering how much I didn't have to censor in my Saw 2 review, between the opening scene and this movie really bumps up the gore to 100. They're trying to appeal to the horror-loving audience their series has grown, but it's at the cost of the fans who could get past the sparse gore of the first movie for the story, but not much more than that. The main thing justifying this gore-fest scene is the fact that the door was sealed shut. Even if he won, there was no escape, leading Carrie to believe it wasn't Jigsaw. We find out Carrie's still searching for Matthews and blames herself for his missing. After, it's okay. It's just a cliche. Carrie examines the tape at home as Jigsaw somehow gets her VHS player to pick up this live signal of a camera, getting her attention and... I swear it's less complicated and implausible than the effort's worth. Or maybe not. But the plan works perfectly and Carrie is kidnapped. I can see the plot right here. Carrie, a previously minor character being placed into a game, learning how not to blame herself for something out of her hands. Finding Matthews learning how not to be a dirty cop. This is gonna be awesome! Or Carrie is shown in another gory scene, dies, and is never brought up again for the remainder of the film. Oh, you silly movie, leading us into thinking you'd get to the plot when really you just give us a glorified opening kill. You trickster, you. Also, Jigsaw's reason for putting Carrie into a game doesn't make sense. Jigsaw says she's there because she examines bodies.
You identify more with a corpse than you do with a living human.
That's right, the character who wants to keep killers off the streets and is seen telling her fellow officer how she feels and crying thinking that her friend might be dead doesn't value life. In fact, she's quite distant from it. Amanda reveals herself, though I don't know why. It's not like she or Jigsaw have a personal grudge with Carrie. Really, she's just revealing herself as the killing Jigsaw to the audience. But I think without this scene, the audience could have inferred that, or if not, the lack of an immediate answer would have allowed for some suspense until the movie goes into Amanda's motives. At most, the scene sweeps Carrie under the rug for the abrupt 16 minutes in introduction to our real main character of the film, Lynn Denlon, a surgeon who seems a bit out of it. She goes into the locker room and, we have another issue with the white balance here. Unlike my last issue with this sort of thing, the white balance is off this time, but that's exactly it. It's inappropriate for a scene like this. The off-white balance is meant to show when a character is in Jigsaw's game, to distinguish the unease and unnatural state of that environment from that of the outside world. So why is it portraying the locker room in her place of work this way? So Lynn is kidnapped and we get our first proper introduction to Amanda. I have to compliment her clothing design. It's a striking red amidst the cool colors of the setting and portrays her intimidating and malicious character well. Lynn's game is to remove John's tumor. If she fails and his heart rate hits 0, her collar explodes.
You may not remember me. I was a guest at your hospital once.
Convenient, huh? Made that up myself. There's also another game going on with a man named Jeff, whom may I mention neither him nor Lynn talk about having any sort of Jigsaw cut on them, but at this point it'd be more of an inconsistency if they were consistent with that MO. At the end of his game, there will be the man who ran over his son. We then get a flashback of him planning to murder this man. Boy, I miss the days when our main character didn't have their whole backstory explained in their introduction. I remember it just like it was a movie ago. Amanda gets in Lynn's face for demanding hospital supplies, but then has to help her restrain John as he convulses. The stark and quick shifts in emotion are really reminiscent of the first movie. It makes the characters feel unstable, like they're constantly on a teeter-totter. It adds a lot of unpredictability and suspense to the movie. And we cut to Jeff's first challenge, gratuitous nudity. Jeff debates whether or not to save her until he fails trying. We cut back to Lynn and Amanda. I find myself enjoying their segment of the movie because it manages to be really suspenseful. Suspense is all about what the characters have to lose, and the stakes are high. John has to rely on Lynn to cure him. Lynn has to rely on Amanda to help her and, eventually, remove her collar. Amanda has to rely on Lynn to save her father figure, and Lynn has to save John's life to save her own. Their conflicts are an intricately entangled web that I'd be lying if I said I didn't absolutely adore. We get a flashback of Amanda meeting Jigsaw as he takes her under his wing. I like this flashback. It deepens their father-daughter relationship, which I think is portrayed really well in this movie, with scenes like John reprimanding Amanda for threatening Lynn. We cut back to the less interesting Jeff's plot. I say so because for the most part, it's just him and his story. Because of this, we don't have a problem like in Saw 2 where the abundance of characters caused some to get left in the dust in terms of focus, but it means that there isn't an overarching character for Jeff to play off of. The characters you are introduced to, however, you don't care much for, because they aren't introduced at the beginning of the story like other movies. Instead, you meet them, and they're already in danger. This time it's the judge who presided over Jeff's case. Also, how did Jigsaw organize this? We've only seen him build small time, often simple traps, yet all of the sudden he can facilitate this giant meat grinder, freezer, and more in this building? It's a bit of a redundant scene with Jeff's will I won't I save them, but he ends it realizing he doesn't want to be a killer and saves him. Although I like stories with more characters, Jeff's center focus allows the writers to develop him more as we get closer and closer to the climax. We cut back to Lynn starting the surgery. I'm not going to show a lot of this scene, but that's not to say I dislike it. It's gory, yes, but unlike the opening scenes to this movie and the people in Jeff's game, we've actually actually spend time with these characters. You can feel a range of emotions with Amanda. Yeah, you hate her for her temper and putting people in death games, but you feel a bit sorry for her having to see her father figure like this. Everything goes well except, oh no. His mind is manifesting another backstory. To be fair, this addition to John's past isn't as bad as in Saw 2, because it's easily believable that John had a lover at one point and doesn't feel at odds with what we already know about the character. Not to mention it gives John more humanity that allows for the audience to connect to him more as well as deepens his character. I like the yin and yang of John and Amanda as well. John's weakness is his age and cancer, but his power is in his mental capabilities, while Amanda is youthful with perfect health but weak in emotion. We then flash back to Amanda's self-insert fanfiction to the first movie? This film presents as if Amanda was there from the beginning, but she clearly wasn't. Similar to my complaint with the last movie's twist, this scene doesn't change how we perceive the events of the first movie. Well, it would if we had evidence from the first movie that actually corroborated this flashback instead of to the contrary, like in the first movie. If Jigsaw had a partner, they could have kidnapped Adam and Lawrence simultaneously in one area. Or this scene where we see Jigsaw going into his lair, well, look at that, alone. The first movie was specifically structured with only one Jigsaw in mind. Because of it, when you try to say there were two all along, the pieces don't fit neatly together. We find the reason Amanda cuts herself is because she mercy killed Adam. It makes me wish this movie was planned ahead, so when Amanda enters this room in the second movie, she could have appeared traumatized, alluding to this past. But as is, I can look past this inconsistency. Although I dislike imposing Amanda into the events of the first movie, I admire that they used the flashback to explain why she cut herself and expand on this aspect of her character. Then it's Jeff's next test, the man who killed his son, Timothy Young. It seems as though Young felt immediate guilt for the child's death, showing that he values life, so you'd think Jigsaw wouldn't put him in such a dangerous game. It is Jeff's test, but I think the story could have been written more adhering to John's beliefs. What if Young refused to admit responsibility for his actions? Maybe it could have been structured similarly to Saw 1 with Jeff and Timothy having to work together. There are many ways you can go about fixing this, but those are just my thoughts. Really wanted to write me out of the story that much, huh? But it's too late. Jeff learns to forgive Young, realizing his desire to kill him made him no less of a killer. Amanda refuses to free Lynn when we flash back to, oh yeah, this is how the film began. Matthews beats Amanda, but she manages to escape. You're not Jigsaw! I think this is a really clever turning point. It explains that Amanda, after essentially killing him, accepted she'd be nothing like John and why she became a killing Jigsaw. Or at least, it would be more of a turning point if Amanda hadn't already have killed someone prior.
Your games were unwinnable.
Wait, this scene's inclusion in her unwinnable games implies she wanted the key to go down the drain. It's trying to answer the question of why John left Adam in the bathroom, and I guess my joke was right. Jigsaw really did think the key was in the bathtub. But their retroactive attempt to answer a question only made things worse. If Amanda was intending to kill people in her game since the beginning, then it nullifies her fight with Matthews as what made her into a killer and completely undermines the scene as a turning point. When initially seeing the flashback for the setup of the first game, the key going down the drain seems like it's just an accident. This works better because it means Amanda's guilt is due to this mistake, mercy killing Adam because something went wrong rather than, if this were intended, killing him after her plan to leave him to die worked. Now, this whole confusion could just be an issue in editing rather than the script. It's just speculation, but let's assume it was an editor's flub. This would mean the key going down the drain was Amanda's mistake. The situation isn't completely solid, however. Amanda could have told John about the accident or free Adam herself. It wasn't his game, and unlike Lawrence, Adam wouldn't know who John Kramer is to get him arrested. Amanda has an interesting moment. Despite both being Jigsaw, Amanda's belief is a foil to John's. She says nobody changes as a reason to why she kills. Amanda also resonates with the viewer in a sense in saying that John is no different than a killer and is just as responsible for these people's death. There's a ton of conflict here, not just in the characters, but in the audience themselves. You both agree and disagree with the villain, disagreeing with the villain. Amanda's newfound belief creatively uses the previous movie as the basis for her development. She expected to be cured in her game in Saw 2, but it doesn't relieve her guilt and she still cuts herself, hence why she now believes no one changes. Amanda shoots Lynn as her real husband Jeff shoots Amanda. As it turns out, this was Amanda's game. Well, at least Jigsaw let Amanda kill, what, 4 people before thinking, maybe now I should intervene. Jeff can still save Lynn. Jigsaw offers Jeff the chance to exact his revenge on the man who trapped him in this game. But Jeff puts down the saw, showing his vengeful desires are behind him, concluding his character arc. Wait, what? Screw my character development, we need a better ending! So Lynn's collar explodes as it turns out John was the only one who knew the location of their daughter as she's running out of air. Well, way to end the movie, huh? Lynn won her game, grew to appreciate her husband, fought for her life, and dies. We saw Jeff grow as a character and learn how to forgive, but nah, he just had to waste Lynn's efforts. And did Jigsaw really need to involve Jeff's daughter? She's only like 8 years old. It'd be bad enough for her to find out her father caused her mother's death. What, was Jigsaw just lying in his deathbed thinking, hey, I know what will make this ending even more depressing? Not only that, but it was really counterintuitive to John's belief to try to mix games here. Lynn beat her game, yet because of Amanda's test, he endangered Lynn by involving someone who he knows kills people in his games, and welp, she did it again. It makes John's ideology of if you passed your game, you've earned your life, more like if you pass your game, so what? You face the consequences of others' actions. Okay, I admit, even in the first movie, people like Lawrence's wife or Adam faced the consequences of the doctor's test, but at least Lawrence was to be executed if he failed. But it's worse here because we see the setup defy John's policy, the bitter ending forced by character regression, and unlike every other game, Jeff doesn't face death if he fails. Well, what did I like? I liked the twist that Jeff was Lynn's husband. It meaning that it was also her son who got ran over explained why she felt uneasy when a child got wheeled into the ER. As for Amanda, I enjoyed her character. We saw her as a sort of timid girl in Saw 2, and we see her develop to be power-crazed and murderous. I really like how she differed in each of her appearances and gave a sense of her change, especially with how she starts her life as Jigsaw with short hair and grows her hair as she grows into the role. The game developed over time due to Amanda's jealousy and realizing she was a killer, adding more layers of conflict to the story. It made Lynn's game feel dynamic. That along with her suspense made her side of the story feel reminiscent of the first movie. However, the element of mystery in this movie isn't prominent like the first one. But I can look past that because that wasn't one of the writer's goals with the film. I think it's important to judge art tangent to its intent, so let's look at what Wano and Guzman hoped to accomplish with this movie. One aspect they wanted this movie to excel in was emotion, and I gotta give them credit. The ending really pissed me off, but I think the twisted father-daughter relationship and Amanda realizing she let the man who saved her down was well done and impactful. As for a sort of conclusion to John, I think the death of him and his apprentice is an appropriate finale. Dying at the hands of his subject is equally fitting, if only it could have been done better. Without a doubt, my biggest problem is the ending. When Amanda dies, it seems like the movie is denouncing those unwilling to change, yet Lynn, a character who did change, dies. By now you're probably wondering what my verdict is. For every praise I give the movie, I damn it for something else. I guess you can say I'm in the middle. Not 'cause it's mediocre. I'm in between extremities here. Love, hate, disgust, enamorment. I can only speak for how this movie fared for me. It's horrible. It's great. It is Saw 3. That being said, let's see how the next installment of the series fares next time on Zibboyeye Reviews. See ya.